Hello! So this week on PersonsTwo, as it's getting closer to Christmas and other holiday gift-giving-y times, cool Hannah, um, we decided that we were going to suggest to you some books that you might want to either read yourself or get for someone as a gift, because that's fun. But we're going to focus on books that are particularly good from a feminist perspective. The book that I have picked that I want to talk about is, oh, this camera reverses my screen, but it's called The Birth House, and it's by Ami McKay. It's historical fiction. It's set in very early 1900s in Nova Scotia, and it's basically about midwifery and traditional folk medicine and sort of the lives of women in this small rural community. And it's really good, for one thing, I think, because a lot of historical fiction books tend to really romanticize the past, and this book is unique, I think, because it paints a really stark and accurate picture of how terrible those times were for women, in just everyday settings. How poorly treated they were and how commonplace it was, which I think is really interesting. It's narrated by a female, and pretty much all of the major characters in it are female, and a lot of it is about the interactions between women in this community and in this time, which I think is really interesting and really good. So it's got some interesting historical perspective, and it's got some really strong female characters, and it shows their interactions a lot, which is great. And it also sort of tackles a lot of things that were issues then, but are still can be translated into things that our society still struggles with now. Like, a lot of it is about the struggle for women to be able to take control of their own healthcare and their own reproductive rights, which is still something that we struggle with today. It's in this book, it's in the context of women being allowed to practice like traditional sort of folk medicine and midwifery. As one of the other things that I really, really like about this book that I want to talk about, but spoiler alert, if you want to read this book and you haven't read this book, you should stop the video now, because I am going to spoil it. So if you don't want this book to be spoiled for you, leave now. Bye. Okay, so one thing that I really, really like about the book is, so the main character gets married near the someone she doesn't know super well, which was sort of the norm at the time, because it's going to be good for her economically and stuff. And so she gets married to this person early in the book, and turns out to be abusive and a pretty terrible person, which was fairly expected in those days. So she's just sort of dealing with it, like that, which is an accurate and I think really sad portrayal of how she just completely takes this, because even though she's a very strong character, the society has been organized in a way that's expected, and it's her job to just deal with it. But anyways, her husband dies partway through the book, and so she's just on her own for a while, which is a lot better for her, and she's sort of fulfilling her own goals and her own career in that, which is really, she sort of she gets this relationship going with, it was actually her late husband's brother, but he's a much kinder character and much more, like, reasonable and everything. But what I really love so much about this book is because they sort of hint at this romance from fairly early on, and they build it for a while, and it's the kind of thing that you, as the reader, then start to, like, want to happen. But as I was reading it, I was like, I both want this to happen, but I also don't, because this is such a strong feminist character right now, and I would hate for it to be one of those books that just ends with she got married happily ever after. What I love about it is basically it ends with her saying to this guy, like, look, I really I really like you, but I want a relationship to stay like just as it is right now. But like I don't want to get married to you. I don't want to live with you. I want to sort of like still be my own person, and I don't want to become somebody's wife. That, anyways, it's a really good book. If you want to check it out, it's also by a Canadian author, which I think is really cool. Yeah. So that is my feminist book recommendation of the day. I look forward to seeing your video on Thursday, Enrico. Everybody else, have a good week. Thank you for watching. Bye.